So just briefly, who is Kajenga Wellness? So Kajenga is a Black-led grassroots project designed to initiate supportive community resources for children, youth, adults, and families in the Durham region. We strive to build our community foundation and promote holistic teaching and education, as well as mental wellness and healing from trauma. And before we start, we're going to just start with our land acknowledgement. Kajenga Wellness Project acknowledges the lands and people of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation. We are thankful to be welcomed on these lands in friendship. The lands we are situated are covered under the Williams Treaties and the traditional territory of the Mississauga, a branch of the Great Anishinaabe Nation, including Algonquin, Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi. These lands remain home to a number of Indigenous nations and people. We acknowledge this land out of respect for the Indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America, from before the arrival of settler peoples until this day. Most importantly, we remember the history of these lands had been tainted by poor treatment and a lack of friendship from the First Nations who call them home. This history is something we all are affected by, as we are all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect on, and each of us is affected by the history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, then it does not have to define our future. Now, as we begin, let's pause for a moment to remember our ancestral roots and the enslaved African people that were stolen from their homelands and traveled through the transatlantic route to build on lands we know as North America. Let us honor the enslaved people who built this nation. Let us recognize the histories of Ontario and across Canada as complicit with the racism of white supremacy. We recognize that these difficult histories persist in present-day racial realities. We commit to dismantling racism in all spaces, and we invite you to come together with us to create change. So today we welcome our facilitator, Melissa Perryman, who is a teacher at the Durham District School Board, who will be here to present the workshop to you all. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the Q&A or drop it in the chat as well. So thank you so much, Melissa, and you can take it away.
Thank you, Tasia. All right. Can you hear me? Hi, thank you. And I'm super grateful to be here. It's our 4th annual Navigating Through the School and just offering parents some tidbit of information. Brittany, were you able to share the presentation? So the purpose just of this workshop is really to give parents some tips, some nuggets, some just goals of how we can navigate the school system that wasn't built for us to succeed. So keeping that in mind, how do we navigate it? How do we help our Black students succeed in a system that wasn't built for us? So I always like to think back on how I acknowledge the land. There's a picture there of St. Lucia. I was able to go to St. Lucia over the summer, and going back to the Caribbean, it feels like home. Like I really enjoy every time I get off the airplane, I smell the air, and it just feels like home. So I have a strong connection to the islands, and I always appreciate when I'm there, but I also appreciate coming back home to Canada, which I've been here for so long. So it's the best of both worlds. I'm so grateful that I'm able to travel to my parents' countries and go to different islands and also get to come home and really appreciate the land that we live in that has the 4 seasons, that even though it's winter, it's still beautiful. So I really appreciate that. And I just try to remain grateful. And I love that we're having this presentation that like on the eve of Orange Shirt Day, because it's so telling. So we all heard about residential schools. We can no longer be ignorant to the fact of what happened to Indigenous students in schools. And this is a time to reflect and learn that this school system that we are in has not been changed from since, like it hasn't been reformed. So until we get complete education reform, there's so much work that needs to be done within the school system. And it's a matter of acknowledging all the biases that teachers hold and the system and really trying to work within it. Okay, so key topics, we're going to talk about understanding the race and impact of race in your childhood experience. So thinking that everyone, unless they do their own work, unless each teacher really unlearns their own racial bias and prejudice and does work on themselves, how's that impacting them? Okay, so, and most teachers have not done the work. We've kind of just started, but until they've unpacked their own racial biases, even Black teachers, Black educators themselves, because we're all trained in the system, it's going to work negatively against your child. So keeping that in mind. Balancing life, work, and school. I'm now gone back to work full time after mat leave, and I'm finding like this is the trickiest part for me to balance. Enhancing parent wellness. Again, that's something that if you can't take care of yourself, you cannot help your child. So making sure that you are in a good position to take care of others, right? Effective advocacy in schools. Like what can you do to really help counteract anti-Black racism, navigating classroom environments, and setting your child up for success. And we all want our students to be successful and to succeed and to do greater and better things than we did for ourselves. And that's me. I am a teacher within the Durham District School Board. I also worked within the private sector doing tutoring too as well at a learning center. And I've also traveled within different schools in Ajax working on anti-Black racism within the kindergarten spaces. So I've got a lot of different bits of experience about how our children are being treated within the schools and how we can try to counteract that. And now that I'm back in the class, I've also had that new experiences of how post-COVID, how our students are really handling things and how everything's going, because those 2020 did make a huge impact to a lot of our learners, and how can we counteract that? So I'm not sure if anyone has heard the news. A 12-year-old girl charged and in an assault and tasered by the police in an Oshawa school. I'm just going to give a brief summary of the incident. So a 12-year-old girl was tasered by a police officer amidst a series of alleged assaults at an Oshawa elementary school and is facing multiple charges related to the incident. Durham Region Police say the girl attacked 3 staff members and a fellow student at Sir Albert Love Catholic School on Monday morning. One of the victims was taken to hospital after being struck to the head, police said in a news release. Officers were called to the school and allegedly found the girl physically assaulting a staff member. One officer tasered the girl and she was arrested according to the release. So this was also captured on body-worn cameras. The girl was charged with 4 counts of assault. And I notice I'm saying girl because it's a 12-year-old girl. And investigators have been in communication with the school boards as well as the parent of the school. So has anyone heard this incident? What are your thoughts? Let me check the chat here. And can anyone guess what the race of the child is? Feel free to comment in the chat or in the Q&A portion. Yeah, so it was a Black girl. And I knew before they even said anything that that they would have arrested and tasered a Black girl, because it was a lot. And in my opinion, that's the school system failing that child. There's several missteps in the system. Yeah, I thought, yeah, you would think the police, one comment said, like, I thought the police did not use a trauma-informed lens. Like, yeah, she was tasered. So there was a lot of missteps that happened to get that far for a 12-year-old girl to be tasered in school. Lack of support, lack of funding, lack of training. Lots of things must have gone wrong for a child to get to the point where they're actually aggressively physically assaulting, and for the police to come in and feel like they needed to taser a 12-year-old girl. That's our system failing. So from that moment, I was like, this is broken. Like 12 years old. So that's a little girl being tasered, and you can die from being tasered. So it was very shocking, but I wasn't surprised it was a Black girl. That's my own personal opinion, but it was super shocking. So our system is broken, and we need to help fix it. So I have a poll question. If you are a parent with children, have you had a conversation this year, either phone or email, with your classroom, your student's teacher? Awesome. Samantha Clark says yes. Anybody else? Have they talked to, made connections, introduced themselves? So if not, I urge you to have an open dialogue with your child's teacher. Let them know who you are. Let them know that you have high expectations for your child's learning, and you are eager and willing to be part of their learning journey. Yeah, since the school started in September, just make sure that you've introduced yourself. The best email that they can reach you at, the best phone number they can call you at. Let them know that you're present, you're there, and you're going to hold them accountable. Okay, so it's so easy to just send them off and say, oh, how's your teacher? But you really want to connect with them. Yes, and go to meet the teacher if you can, for sure. And if you couldn't be there, you can ask to come in. So often we think that we only get those 3 times to visit the school. No, you can come in, you can call, you can ask if I can see the classroom. Definitely, you can, it's a public space. You can come in and definitely book an appointment with your teacher to meet them. Okay, they need to see us as Black parents, racialized parents, visible there with their students. So that's great that people are saying yes, that they have done that. That's perfect. So balancing life, work, and social. So again, we can only be our best selves when we are taking care of ourselves, and we can only take care of our children once we've taken care of ourselves. I'm finding this the hardest now that I'm back at work full time, is being able to balance my life, my work, and my social. But here's some key points to help kind of like reset and get you back in the right direction. Identify some of your values, some things that are really important in life. I've now recently started going back to church, and I thought that was something that was important for me. That was a great way for me to just get out the house, get dressed up nice, and I'm creating time out of my week to go and do that. Practice great time management. Enough can be said about that. Just making sure that you are spending your time wisely. It's so easy to get caught into 10 episodes of Netflix and lose track of what you need to do. So it's really good to just say, okay, I get 2 hours of TV each night or 1 hour of TV, then I got to go to bed early so I can be fresh and ready for the morning. The next one is to set boundaries. Establish clear boundaries between work and personal time. We have open dialogue with our parents. Some parents will email me at 9, 10, 11 o'clock. I get emails at 4 o'clock in the morning. I do not answer my emails after 4:30. So it will come in. You can email your teacher at any time, but you want to make sure that you have clear boundaries. So I will email during school hours, but I'm not gonna email back or even try to read or check my messages at 11, 12 o'clock at night. So you really want to set those clear boundaries and find the joy in your work to make it fulfilling. I think sometimes we can get caught up in, I can't wait till Friday, 2 more days till Friday, 3 more days till Friday, that we're missing life, we're not living it. So making sure that with each moment, each day, you're finding that joy. For me, it's having treat days or making a special lunch or just even going out to eat, that would help boost my day, or going to the park at the end of the day, just finding some things to make work and life fulfilling. So we also want to nurture relationships, build meaningful friendships. And that takes work, that takes time. It's hard to connect with friends and when you get into the busy life. But if you carve up some time, it could be really fulfilling. And it doesn't have to be every week, but maybe once a month, you connect with your friends and you guys do a movie day, or you go have some drinks, just somewhere where you can get that social bit for you outside of your kids, outside of work, outside of the mundane, to kind of boost your own morale, boost your own esteem. Focus on health, physical and mental health, a priority. I'm going to talk more about the mental health piece, but after 2020, after the pandemic, after all the financial inflation, interest rates going up, all the things, eggs being $7 to $8, it's so important that we work on our health, right? Really help maintain that stress, manage that stress, and really focus on our health, because we only get one health, one life, and we want to make sure that we can really take care of it, because they will replace you. And I always say that at work, if ever you can't come in, there's someone there that will replace you. So don't think that you're invincible and you're the only one, because we're not. And so our health is key. Our health is something that we need to maintain and really pay attention. Don't put it on the back burner, because you need to be your best self to help your children, your friends, your family, and everyone else. And lastly, my favorite, taking breaks, incorporating downtime in your schedule to rest and recharge. This summer, I had the pleasure of taking lots of breaks. I went to St. Lucia, and you can see there's my baby enjoying like life, living his best life, and relaxing, resting. He's sleeping there. It's so important. It's so important to balance, right? So as much as I'm working hard during the school year, I know that I'm going to try to book another vacation for the summer, for March break, even for Christmas if I could. So that's important. I just wanted to give, I think we started a little bit late, but maybe any questions at this point in time? Anything, if I should go slower, how's the pace? What's our feedback in our audience here? Because then we can just power through. We don't need to take a break. And if anything that you have questions about school that you want me to address to as well, anything that's come up within this first week. Okay. All right, good. Okay, I think we can keep going. So the next slide is a video as we segue into parenting.
I'll get the video up for us. One moment here.
Let me know if it works. Is it working?
Do you have the link by chance? Or it's just not linking there.
Yeah, let me just
We've got it. It's loaded.
You got it?
It was loading. One moment
Okay.
here.
Sorry. Oh, I think the sound is off. Oh, sorry. Technology. Oh yeah, you just have to press that little speaker at the bottom. Oh yeah, right there. Oh wait. That's still don't hear it. That's okay. We can skip over.
We're not starving people here, okay? I have this under control. I'm so. You bloody present for. Okay, you're done. Hey, just give me yeah, then it looks like you've got it. No, we're not. No, we're not. Someone videotaping this? Steve, where are you? Steve, you're done. Oh, great. You're out there. Thank you so much.
Hey, sweetie, I brought the car up, save you a little walking time.
We had a front space.
Well, it's still closer.
Hey, Peter, look at my filming the job.
Wow. Oh, you caved, huh?
No, I did not cave. I bought it for her. It was only $4. You just get out of here.
So basically, they're in a store with their foster children, and the little girl wants the Barbie, and the mom is saying, no, not the Barbie, and they're just fighting over the Barbie, and the girl's having a temper tantrum. And I don't know if you've ever been in public with your child having a temper tantrum. It's embarrassing. It's you want it to stop, and you want to stay true to your morals, but it's really hard. So at the end of the day, her bigger sister buys her the Barbie, and you just have to pick your battles. So that was my take from that. And it's such a good movie, but it really outlines that parenting is very hard. It's hard work. You're always on. So I always like to go through the stress burnout questionnaire. So thinking to yourself, and you don't have to put anything in the chat, but if you feel yes to a couple or more of these questions, you may have stress burnout. So one of them is, I feel run down and drained of a physical and emotional energy. I have negative thoughts. I am harder and less sympathetic with people than perhaps they deserve. I am easily irritated by small problems. That's me. I feel misunderstood or unappreciated. I feel like that I have no one to talk to. I feel like I'm achieving less than I should. I have physical symptoms of stress, example, insomnia, stomach pains, headaches, migraines. I feel my memory is unreliable. It's me again. I'm more susceptible to illness lately, colds, flu, allergies, hay fever. It's hard to enjoy myself, have fun, relax, and experience joy. So you can find this test, the full test, at mindtools.com. But if you've answered yes to a couple or more of them, it's time to kind of reevaluate and really try to put some strategies in practice. Or if you need to, seek outside help, therapy, counseling, to help you get back on track, help you reset. So I have some statistics about mental health in Canada, and half of Canadians will face some level of mental health issues by the time they turn 40. That's huge. That's half. Younger people in Canada are in the group most likely to have a mental health condition. Again, that's huge. People on the lowest incomes are 3 or 4 times as likely to have poor or fair mental health compared to people on the highest incomes. And the number of Canadians reporting their mental health as good or excellent fell following the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've talked about that at length in previous presentations, that the pandemic did a number on a lot of mental health. And the number of people who feel regularly stressed out almost doubled following the pandemic. So it's important that you check in. This is like a check-in. How do you feel Do I need supports? Do I need outside help? Do I need to reevaluate my life? How can I get back on track? So here's some strategies for coping with stress. If you feel like you just need to be reminded of some of the basic strategies, which is, oh, I think it's next slide. Listening to music, physical activity that's huge, reading, meditation, praying, going to church, self-care, yoga, getting a massage, one of my favorites. Tune out the news and social media, therapy, and access your community supports like Kajenga. Again, like the media, sometimes the news can be too much. Listening to the news, and sometimes you just need to turn that off. Sometimes you need to just go for a walk after lunch or after dinner. So we hear this time and time again, but it's really important to pay attention to your body, your stress levels. Stress causes so much diseases. So really trying to counteract that. This is your reminder. This is your warning to really check in on your stress and pick one thing to do to help combat it. Does anyone have any other preferred ways of dealing with stress? I forgot to mention travel, if you can. Let me check the chat.
We do have a question in the chat, and Carrington, I'm sure we'll answer that shortly.
Oh, sleeping is a good one. So from one Black educator to another, what special considerations do you make, if anything, with engaging with racial families and students? I always find myself straddling the line. I don't want to single this child out, but I also want to show that I know I'm looking for them in a way only a BIPOC. Oh yeah, only a way a BIPOC can understand. So definitely, I love that question, and I go to bat for my Black students. And yes, it may feel like you're singling them out, but let me tell you, if they only get one Black educator out of their entire school career, I want to be their best educator. I want to be their advocate and their ally. Definitely for my racialized, for my Black students especially, I definitely go above and beyond for sure, because I know that the system wasn't built for them. So I'm always trying to counteract the system. And it's funny, one of my colleagues only reads like Black books and stories that have Black excellence, Black success. Like her classroom has tons of Black books. And one of her colleagues was like, oh, that's a lot, right? Like, why do you have so many? It could be, misconstrued, like the white students or the other white students might feel like, I'm underrepresented in this classroom. And she simply replied was that this may be the only time that they would have that many images, positive role models that they're looking at, because in their other classrooms, they may not get that. And I don't know about you, I had one Black educator and I've lived in Durham. So only having one Black educator, one person that looks like you, it could be tough. So I really try to go above and beyond, show them extra kindness, let them know that I'm on their side. Doesn't mean that if my Black students are not achieving their full potential, I'm just going to let it slide. No, I definitely want to make them accountable, because I want to set them up for success in the grade ahead. And if they get a teacher who is not going to go to bat for them, or who is not going to really see their excellence. So I love that question. And I really just think that you could be one or two of all their educators that are actually Black. There is not as much. I don't know if we can do like a poll or anyone can say, like, did anyone have more than 3 Black educators in their elementary career? Because I had one in elementary and in high school, one Black teacher. None? Yeah. So I try to be the best of the best. If it's the only one that they'll see, not a single one. Yeah, never. I grew up in Curtis. And I had one in high school when I was in Oshawa, one Black educator, none. Natalie says none, yeah. So I definitely want to be none. Nobody had any Black teachers. In Scarborough, you had none, Samantha? Oh my goodness. Nicole had not one in Pickering? Okay, Jacqueline had a fair amount. Okay, that's good. That's good. But yeah. High school too. Yeah, but it's not enough, I feel. So I definitely try to go above and beyond for those students because I tell you, it can be hard. And I really try to make a good connection with the parents, for sure. Let them know, because a lot of Black people, racialized people, Indigenous especially, come and approach school with school hurt, just like they talk about church hurt. People have been beaten down by the school system, for sure. Nicole, my kids are in grade 10, 11, never had a teacher. What? Never had a Black teacher. Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, the representation is not there. So if you're a teacher, you want to make sure you show Black students that they can be teachers, they can be astronauts, they can be doctors, they can be lawyers, they can be all the things, they can be mechanics, right? You want to make sure that you're giving them all the representation because you're thinking about that, right? Other educators, unless they've done their work, are not necessarily thinking about that. Yeah. And then again, back to the coping with stress, sleeping is a great one. Walks, baking is a great one. I love to bake. I love to eat baked goods. That's all the things. So just make sure, at least as a homework, do one thing that you love, one thing that brings you joy to help counteract the stress. The next, so improving parental well-being. I just checked myself for time. Okay. Parenting is challenging, but it's also really rewarding and can bring fulfillment. I worked as a foster parent before I became a bio parent. So that in and of itself really had to prioritize self-care because you get children in your home who are coming from severe trauma situations, and you need to prioritize self-care so that you can be your best self for them. And that's not something that I came out knowing right out the gate. That's definitely something I had to learn, I had to practice and work on, right? Because it's so easy to get caught up with this kid's doing this, the kid's doing that, the kid's doing that, and just understanding that just behaviors are a symptom of something. So my kid is having a temper tantrum. What's going on? Why do they always temper tantrum after school? You know, sometimes they have to hold it in. You know, there may be a kid picking on them at school. They may be hungry. And then when they get home and feel safe, that's when they release. So you want to make sure you're your best self. So you're not taking on their stress and taking it personal when they lash out or when they scream and throw things. Oh, good for Jacqueline. I work out before the game before work. I would love to do that. That is my goal. We're not there yet, but soon. That's amazing. That's really good. So connect with others. When I was on mat leave, we created a parenting group, like a group of, it's called the Turn Up Babies, and it was just connecting with other parents. So even though, you know, I was raising kids before, I still wanted to connect with my own child, with other parents, and leave the house. Otherwise, I would stay in my house all day in my pajamas. So it was so good to connect with other parents and say, oh, you know, does your child do this? Does your child do that? And it was good to build community and build relationships. And it was, you know, great for the babies to get to see other babies that looked like them and really have a bit of a community. Set realistic expectations. That one's a good one because I can make a list of 1,000,001 things to do. and then never check off anything. So set realistic expectations, like today, I'll do 1 load of laundry. And maybe for me, it'd be today I would fold my laundry, not even complete a load, maybe just put it in the wash machine. And that would be my expectation, and it's realistic. And practice mindfulness. That's another way of just trying being in the moment, being present. It's so easy to get caught up and not be present, right? I'm there all the time. So just to go over quickly, what is anti-Black racism? And when we understand anti-Black racism, we can understand how it's working in the school system. So it's a pervasive and systemic form of discrimination that targets individuals who identify as Black or African descent. So it's rooted in historical and contemporary power structures that prioritize whiteness and dehumanizes Blackness. So this type of racism can manifest in a multitude of ways, but not limited to police brutality, racial profiling, employment discrimination, housing discrimination, and what we're going to be talking about is educational inequalities. So it's important to acknowledge and address anti-Black racism in order to create a more just and equitable society for all. So with that being said, what does it look like in school? So it could be more office suspensions. And now, in the Durham board, at least, they stopped suspending students up until grade 3. So before your child in kindergarten could have been suspended, but now they don't start suspensions until grade 4. So it's still, if you have a student that's in grade 4 and older, be mindful of, but at least they're not suspending our babies, which were 8 and under. So it could be more office suspensions, disproportionate inclusive student services referrals. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, which is, okay, let's refer your student to like a behavior safety plan, an IEP. It's more of that. It's the lack of representation in the books that you're reading. So if you go in a classroom, you see the books and none of them have Black students on them, that is anti-Black racism, right? It's not representative of your class. And it's not limited to white educators. So racialized educators, Black educators can perpetuate anti-Black racism. It's part of the system. So just because you see us and we're skin folk does not mean that we are all kin. It's lower expectations. So like I said in the beginning, say I have high expectations for my child. I want them to achieve the best. They're often seen as the aggressor in conflicts. So I've seen it time and time again. Your kid may have retaliated it from someone pushing them, and they're seen as the one that were the aggressor. It's having poor learning skills, what they're assessed of, and that's subjective, right? That's not something that's marked on a chart, on a scale. Your teacher is just looking at your student and assessing, okay, their learning skills are poor. That's their opinion. It's assumed to have unsupported or angry parents. And I've seen it. I've seen educators talk about Black parents and saying, oh, that's an angry mom. That mom's got attitude. It's happening. The big one, Black History Month, just having the slave narrative. So if all your student learns in Black History Month is about Henry's Freedom Box or about Harriet Tubman and slavery, then it's perpetuating that negative images. It's really important to learn, but if that's all they're getting again and again and again, it's making them feel like they're nothing, making them feel like they're less than. That shouldn't be their only discussion about Black individuals, is of them being enslaved persons. Less likely for educators to look at you. Your hand is up. I've seen it. I go into classes and I was helping educators, and you would see, even if the Black student's hand is up first, they may not get picked, right? And on several occasions, just not a one-off. Placing international students in lower grade. That used to happen a lot before. If you came from the islands, you were definitely put down a lower level because your accent was considered English as a second language. They did that a lot. The dress code, I remember growing up in high school, not being able to wear like a head tie because that was considered gang related, but you just wanted to lay down your edges. And hyper surveillance of Black students. Black educators do that too as well. They're always looking at the Black students and surveilling them. And then the streaming, which we have kind of ended that, but they were streaming students into applied instead of even offering them academic courses without even knowing their academics. So Nicole says, I have high schoolers and it is not entirely true that streaming is ended. Ooh, okay, perfect. My son's grade 8 teacher tried to tell me that he should not be afraid to take non-academic classes. This is streaming, very supple, often framed in a compliment that makes it really hard to catch how they're undermining your child. Thank you so much for your comment, Nicole. It's so true. It's so true. Yeah. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try non-academic classes. Wow. I'm glad you caught that. Wow. That's horrible. Like, don't be afraid to try academic classes. That's how they should be saying, like, but it's there, and catching it, realizing it, knowing that this system was never meant for your child, period. It was never meant for Indigenous children either, like, and knowing that we need to counteract that. That's, yeah, definitely. So the streaming has not ended. They said it is, but their ideologies are still there. Awesome, thank you so much. The effects of anti-Black racism. So even if your child is not telling you these things, you may see it, a shift in play or academic performance, reverting to younger behaviors, not wanting to go to school, complaints of bullying, loss of interest in regular activities, decreased self-esteem. That's huge. That's huge. Increased anger, worry, fear, and loss of hope. So if you notice a shift in your child, especially with this new school year happening, check in with them. See if everything's going okay. Talk to them about friends, and not just how are you doing? Who did you play with? Is so-and-so still your friend? What book did your teacher read today at school? Just really checking in with them and really trying to assess the situation. But what do you do if it's happening? So definitely, if your child is coming to you and saying, I don't feel safe, I don't like school, believe them and validate them, right? Thank them for coming to you with their concerns. You want to make sure that you're their advocate. You want to make notes of everything, date the notes, make notes of what they're saying. Some could be frivolous complaints, but know that this is a system, and they just always assume that they're telling the truth, right? Contact your teacher. I do appreciate when parents contact me first if they have a concern, and then I can counteract it. If not, if you don't feel the teacher is really doing what they need to be doing, you can elevate your concerns to the administration team and follow up, document it, keep things in writing. And then you could also look for a community advocate. At Kajenga, we help advocate parents of Black children. They're great advocates. If you need to elevate it further, racism and discrimination is a professional misconduct. So if you're feeling that your child is being harmed racially, that can go against them. So another question here, are there any school board policies you would recommend all racialized parents look into? I know I always look at the hate speech policy, the dress code for coded language around gang affiliation. Oh, that's a good one. I know that the Durham board, so I'm with the Durham board, we came out with anti-Black racism policy that all parents should look at, but it's also being updated. It's also in the process of being updated. So they're constantly trying to update the wording. For even the Durham board, we had our human rights policy, which went under a lot of attack last year because they did use the words white supremacy, and that gave a lot of backlash. But they are slowly really starting to make these policies into practice. So definitely the human rights one. Durham has a specific anti-Black racism policy that you can keep in mind, and you can just Google it, or I can put it in in the comments once we have the video. So yeah, and there's definitely, so the new policies are really trying to be vetted, and they've got some good Black educators on them, really trying to make them like not with the coded language, like gang affiliation. So we're really trying, at least with the Durham board. I think the Catholic board did their human rights policy, but they didn't add the white supremacy on it. But correct me if I'm mistaken. Does that answer your question? But the human rights one is the one I think for sure you should look into, because now it can be a human rights violation if your child is being, if you feel a child is being mistreated at school. And make sure you have that documentation, that paper trail of things that are happening, so that you can act accordingly. And it is now professional misconduct. So, and our superintendents, some of the superintendents with our board, they're really cracking down. Okay, we have a chat. They did add the language. Oh yeah, they tried to strip out white supremacy and colonialism from the policy, but we fought and had them to adopt the change. Yep. Accused of misconduct. So again, they go through a tribunal and a board, and they go to a hearing, and then they decide the outcomes. So that's why it's so important to document. So you have a clear documentation of the things that have been happening. Sometimes it could be they have to take like a course, or they have to do things. But if you've been accused of misconduct and it's really severe, you can lose your license, right? So it's important to have clear documentation, and just make sure that you write everything down. And, you know, so that if you feel like your teacher is singling out your child, treating them unfairly, you know, that they can suffer the consequences for it. And it's just because they just don't have, they're just not really working on their biases. Some people feel like they don't need to. They feel like I don't see color, I'm unbiased. And that's where the system plays out the most, right? So how to counteract anti-Black racism in schools. So if you're noticing that your child is feeling a type of way, talk to that teacher on a regular basis, ask about what they're learning, ask if there's representation, like what books are you reading, who are you studying in school. Don't be afraid, volunteer if you can. And then you as a parent, making sure that you're reading books with Black people as in excellence, as doctors, as lawyers, as astronauts. Make sure that you're getting involved too, if you can, within the community to really try to improve their wellness, right? Because they want to make sure that even though they're getting those images at school, we're counteracting them. And that we also have the language that we can kind of back. So I find the principal side on the parent 100%. And it's their job. The principal will always try to, you know, stick up for their colleagues, stick up for the teacher. But if you have irrefutable proof, right? If you say, even if your child used to love coming to school and now they can't, they've got stomach aches, they've got headaches, right? But that's physical proof that there's something amiss here, that there's something that they need to look into, right? And yes, I think they will always try to side on the teacher, but you want to make sure that you've documented on Monday, he came home with a stomach ache. Tuesday, you want to make sure that you have that paper trail so that they take you seriously for sure. Because it's easy to side with your colleague and say, yeah, but more and more, even if you got to elevate it to the superintendent, you know, they don't have the same relationship with the educator, right? Right. So you want to make, and some, you know, educators cause harm, as much as I don't want to say it and don't believe it, but they do. And it's not okay that we go and send our students out to get harm. Racism, it's physical harm on them, right? You can feel it in your body. It's visceral feeling. So Yeah, just keep that documentation. And if you need to elevate it higher than the principal, you can do so too as well. Publicly funded education, right? Just in the sake of time, we're gonna just talk quickly about inclusive. Oh, this is a good. Oh, do we want to try another video, Brittany? What do you think? This may not work.
Is it a click sort of thing?
I think so. See if it works for you. If it doesn't, don't worry. No.
All right.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. This is just another clip about growing up African with ADHD. So I know when we talk about inclusive student services, or special education is what it used to be called, Black students were definitely being referred disproportionately more to those services. And then parents, are like, no, I don't want my child. I don't want my child. So it's trying to find that balance where, what, I think something may be going on with my child, but I want to make sure that I'm there to help support them. And I'm also using the services and supports that the school has, because if they really do need the support, they can only get it if they are diagnosed, or if they are definitely working within the school system to get the supports that they need. So like if they need extra time on test, if they need to go to a quiet room when they need to take a test, if they need to get a special chair so that they can sit in, they can only get that if they have plans and supports in place. So I know it's a double-edged sword. We don't want our children to be diagnosed with anything, but at the same time, if it could give them help, make sure that as parents, you're there every step of the way to make sure that they're getting the best services possible. So, and that includes an array of learning disabilities, array of exceptionalities, I should say. So inclusive student services. So it starts off with an IPRC, which is just a formal committee that meets and decides if the student should be identified as exceptional. And then if so, how can they meet their needs? So they'll meet and say, okay, the student has exceptional needs, how can we do that? And that, as a parent, you can be there. You have to be there, and you can bring a community member, you could bring someone along to help you along the way. Do not feel like you have to navigate the school system by yourself, or that you can't bring someone else in. Even if they're not their parent or related, you can bring someone to support you. The next one. So during that meeting, the students' strengths and needs are reviewed to determine what they need, what exceptionalities that they have, and what's the appropriate. So if they need modification to what the work that they're doing, if it's too much, they may need it modified, or if they need accommodated, right? And accommodations could be they get to use the computer to help them with their typing, or they get to use the computer to read to them for their test. So it can look so differently all through the grades. It's just a matter of what's the plan going to be. And once that plan is in place, are the educators following it so that the student is succeeding, right? You always want to make sure they're on a positive trajectory no matter what. So the Education Act defines an exceptional pupil as the pupil whose behavior, communicational, intellectual, or physical, or multiple exceptionalities are such that they are considered to be needing a placement in a special education program. So not necessarily like they need to go into a different class, but do they need supports to help them achieve their best? And even if they are identified, maybe down the line, they can be reassessed and say, okay, you know what, they're functioning with their strategies fine. They don't need it anymore. But what can we do to help them succeed? Because ideally, every child needs to go to school and they need to succeed, right? That's the goal. Our goal is to make sure that they're all achieving their best. And some may need different things than others to do so. So special education services is that support the resources, the personnel to help implement this program. So getting familiar with your CERT teacher, getting familiar with the principal, once your student is identified, is so key, right? You want your face there, you want even your email there, you just want to make sure that you are there to help govern it. So what is an IEP? So that's an individual education plan. So it's developed in consultation with you, right? And the first thing that they have to highlight is your student's strength. It's so easy to see the negatives, the behaviors, the needs, but the whole purpose is to see the good, the strengths. How does your child present? How do they learn? How do they enjoy? Like, what are their skills? And then through that, they outline services, things that your child will need to make them successful in school, and also a transition plan. So if your child is on an IEP, making sure that you're reviewing it every year, the teachers are reviewing it every year, and throughout the year. So each time there's a report card that gets reviewed, just so that they're keeping on track of it and that your child is growing with it and that they're achieving what they need to achieve, because it's so easy, like, especially when they get to high school. I've seen it. Teachers don't necessarily read the IEPs, right? And they're missing things oh, I didn't know that your child gets an extra 2 hours to take a test. So making sure that they know that it's there and that they're reviewing it and they're using that to help your child succeed. So, so that's just a little bit blurb on the inclusive student services. Any questions on that at all? Because that one's always a bit of a big one. So the last couple slides, just setting your child up for success. If you can, providing your child with positive mentors and positive role models, sorry, my spelling, is so key. So if you have a network of community members, friends, if your child's like, oh, I want to be a lawyer, contacting your friend who may be a lawyer, can you talk with my child? Can you meet with my child? You want to, you want to make sure that you are really setting them up with Black excellence, Black success. We have a question here. What if you change schools? How do you ensure your IEP is implemented? Perfect. If you change schools, the IEP goes with the school. So definitely calling the teacher, calling the school, saying, you know what, this is the IEP of my child. These strategies worked well with my child. I've seen it time and time and again. A child with an IEP had some strategies before at one school, and it's not necessarily followed with the other school. So really making sure that you're on top of it, talking to the teachers and making sure that they're implementing the IEP, especially in high school. So encouraging your students to get involved in a Black Students Association. That one's really good. Those provide like leadership opportunities for children. If your school doesn't have one, ask the teachers. They don't need to be Black to set one up. They just need to create an affinity space for Black students to have leadership roles within the school, right? And that could be them reading books about Black excellence to other classes, or it could be them putting on a presentation outside of Black History Month about a famous Black scientist, like having them celebrate being Black, really trying to show the excellence, because really and truly, you're not getting that in the textbooks. You're not getting that in the regular programming unless your teacher is extremely intentional. And as a parent, how can you be intentional? How can you really set your child up for success? What are some things that you can do? Sports are a good one that helps build confidence. Really trying to create good friendship groups with them, because friendships can be so hard to navigate. So if you know people with kids around your child's age, setting up play dates, having, going to shows, going to plays, like really trying to cultivate a great childhood experience for them, because it's hard. It's really hard for these kiddos. So any questions at all? Did I miss anything in the chat? I mean, it's a brief overview, but if you have any questions, you can reach out to Kajenga. You can. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, we just want to see our Black students succeed and just offer some tidbits of some information to let parents know that, you know what, this system was not built for us, and how can we succeed in it. And I appreciate everyone coming out on a Thursday, you know, Friday Eve. I know it's late, and appreciate you being here. Definitely send this if you think anyone could benefit from it. You can send the video to friends.
We have a question in the chat. So what are some socio-emotional difficulties that children can encounter in school?
Ooh. You know what? The biggest one I'm seeing is because COVID, and because there was a bit of like 2 to 3 years where children were kind of isolated from the in-person, and having a hard time like not actually interacting with people, that their social levels are very low. So for me, even as a kindergarten teacher, I'm teaching kindergarten right now, I'm finding that they're presenting, even though they're 4 and 5 years old, they're presenting emotionally as 2 and 3, right? They socially, they're very low, and it's not because of anything that parents may have done, but just simply because they've missed a huge part of their socialization process. So if a friend looks at them the wrong way, they're crying, or if they don't get the toy, they're having meltdowns. Even parents have been saying, okay, I think my child is getting bullied, and I feel like they don't even know how to interact with peers, right? And you also see that as they get older in grades, just being able to hear friends' concerns and listen and really definitely trying to socialize. I think that it's very tricky. I think they've missed a couple of years, so they're all a little bit low. So I think creating a lot of social opportunities, like for them to go out with a friend, for them to have a play day, and where an adult is there to kind of help govern the conversation, govern their interaction, is key, because they're socially, I think they're really struggling. Is there a session for Black students as well? Yes, definitely. So you know what, we've also presented this in a way that Black students could come to as well, because definitely once they get in high school, they are their best advocates, really and truly, because they see things happening and they can call it out for sure. But that is something that we can keep in mind to kind of, oh yeah, Infrata has smaller groups for children and youth starting in October. We also provide groups in school, and we're working with a few high school schools and elementary schools this term. Perfect. So definitely, if you are looking for a particular school, Samantha, you can reach out to Kajenga and see if they offer support in that area. Oh, thank you, Brittany, for the website.
Yeah, so if you go on our website, there is an enrollment form, and you can just indicate your interest in our in-school and our in-house programs, and also in counseling as well. So one-on-one mentorship and counseling.
Oh, and we have another question. What's the best way to get in touch with Nicole? I have some questions for her after the session. Yes, definitely. Would it be email, Brittany, or?
Yeah, so I will put our info@iferrata.org email in the chat in a moment, and you can always reach out there to Nicole, yes, or anyone on the iFerrata team, or Melissa as well. We can connect together too. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrington, sorry for all your questions. That was great. I think Black students can experience, oh, I think we have another one here. I think that Black students can experience isolation because they are not reflected in the classroom and the school. How do you suggest parents support their children who encounter this? Yeah, like I said, definitely talk to the teacher. Ask them what books they're reading. Are there books that you could suggest books to the educator? You can even lend them your books, right? Definitely say, you know what, I read this really good book. My child loves this book series. Maybe the class can read it as a whole. In our curriculum, it doesn't say which books we should read. So as long as the book is appropriate, they definitely can read it. Yeah, and it's so true. If they're not reading any books with Black individuals, and especially not in a positive light, why would you be engaged in the curriculum? Yep, and you can email Nicole at info@ifradainstitute.org.
Okay, does anyone have any other questions? Thank you again for joining us tonight, again on a Thursday.
Thursday.
And I'd like to thank Melissa as well for this wonderful presentation. You covered a lot of topics about self-care as parents and how to advocate for your child. So I really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.